Oxford.
Hi, I'm Arlene McIntyre, Creative Director at Ventura Design, and you're listening to Shut the Front Door, a light-hearted podcast that will bring you through the front door and into the homes of influential and interesting people. Home for me is one of the most important things in my life. My career has fortunately given me the opportunity to work closely with people and to help them create a home they will cherish forever. Today we are joined by Dr Louise Clarke, a Consultant Chartered Psychologist. Louise trained in the UK, where she worked as a Lead Psychologist in the Priory Hospital before owning her own practice on Harley Street, the world-renowned Centre of Excellence. After 12 years in the UK, Louise moved back to Ireland in 2014 to open her own practice, the Consulting Clinic, on Leeson Street. Mother to Hugo, age 3, and Alexander, who is only 15 weeks old, Louise is currently embracing life in lockdown and enjoying these precious moments with her family, while also balancing working remotely with clients and helping them manage anxiety during these uncertain times, something we could all learn more about right now. Louise, you are very welcome to Shut the Front Door.
Thank you, Arlene.
How are you finding lockdown?
Lockdown has been a bit surreal for me. I'm sure it's surreal for everybody. I've been through many life events have unfolded during lockdown for me. I actually have been in lockdown since early January because I was pregnant at the time and I was put on bed rest from my obstetrician. So I was at the time enjoying life in the home, not knowing that this was all going to unfold with lockdown. And then Alexander was born the end of January, which was a wonderful experience. So we had February settling into the home. And then March, unfortunately, March the 8th, my father sadly passed away.
Oh, God.
Not from the coronavirus, but, from a long-standing illness. So he was fortunate, though, that he was probably one of the last people to have an open funeral just days before lockdown. So that was fortunate. And then that brought us into lockdown and getting used to it and, being with the kids and working and kind of managing all of that. So it's full on, but, I am actually enjoying it. I'm loving time with the boys and I'm very fortunate. My husband has a great job and they've been very understanding and, there's flexibility there. And so that's great support.
Yeah, for sure. My gosh, you're very, very much a new mum. So Are you getting a lot of sleep these days? These nights, rather?
Oh, in February, I was very sleep deprived. He's been great though. He's actually sleeping through the night, which is wonderful. It's very different to my first son, but we're getting a full night, which is great.
That's great. Sleep is everything. I always thought that myself, that if I had a good night's sleep, literally I could tackle anything. I could do anything. It's just all about sleep. I'll figure out the rest, but just give me my sleep.
Absolutely. It makes the difference.
Yeah. So I have so many questions for you today, Louise. And I recently read on Instagram where Sheryl Sandberg posted how the coronavirus pandemic is creating like a double shift for women.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently 1 in 4 women are experiencing like severe anxiety. What's your views on this?
Yeah, I read that article as well. I think it's an excellent article. And, Sheryl Sandberg, she's given a voice to the struggle that a lot of women, unfortunately, are facing, in the workplace and at home during the lockdown. She has conducted a lot of research, from Lean In and SurveyMonkey, which showing a lot of evidence that, women unfortunately are burning out. Now, this evidence is the data that they collected is in America, but it is also, in Great Britain, in Poland, across, Europe. And whilst I'm not sure of the data in Ireland, I know from a lot of friends and neighbours that unfortunately it's the same for them. They're burning out, they're having to do double shifts. The demand is so high on them. They're experiencing anxiety, physical symptoms of anxiety, just feeling really overwhelmed with the pressure of it all.
For sure. And then, of course, on top of that, there's the homeschooling as well, which is very challenging.
Absolutely. Kids, they're fantastic, but they're full on as well. And, it's that parent guilt that a lot of parents talk about, that wanting to give your children the best and homeschool them, but also trying to manage the demands of work as well. It's really difficult. And I actually watched Prime Time there this week, which, talked about it as well, and the demands that parents are facing, and how that it's so difficult to actually be present with their children and be present at work and try to give them that education of homeschooling. It's just so difficult. It's just so hard to perform because they're constantly on all the time. It's very hard for parents.
Yeah, there's just no break, no kind of separation from one, role to the other. It's just this constant level of adrenaline and stress. Yeah, it must be very challenging for a lot of people. And in fact, the whole coronavirus has just cast a very stressful spell on everyone in general.
Absolutely. There's a lot of single parents out there having to cope. There's a lot of, men as well. Everyone is feeling like it's across the board, adults, children, everyone is feeling it. It's quite an uncertain time. And with uncertainty always comes anxiety. So that the mind just, starts racing with uncertainty. We tend to like to have control over things, and, lockdown is just not giving us that. We don't know when this is going to end. So the mind is naturally wanting to bolt there to, unfortunately, the worst case. So that's just where we really have to rein that back in and try and stay grounded so that we don't get even more overwhelmed.
Yeah, for sure. And do you think, in your opinion, that women take on more work at home in general? Or is this just like an old stereotypical gender behaviors thing coming back in full force?
I think that men in my opinion anyway, I think men in recent years are stepping up quite a bit and helping women. But that's when there is really good communication going on and, that equality. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people in the data showing it that, it isn't happening. That's really unfortunate. And that's where communication is really important, letting the other person know that, they need help, they need that assistance. And it's important for every one of us to have a voice about our own mental health and not to suffer in silence.
For sure. Yeah. And like the feeling of frustration, of not being able to do everything in one single line. Yeah. Is probably, is one of the main things, of the emotions. I don't know if you were to kind of break them down, I'd imagine frustration is at the very top end.
Absolutely. Frustration and anxiety are very much, going hand in hand. The frustration of trying to get it all done and not being able to get it done. The frustration, if we go back to parents even, of, how we're trying to give our children the best and it's really difficult. The frustration of targets, the frustration of the coronavirus and how this has impacted for everybody. As well as, all of that worry and that goes hand in hand in the sadness. There's a huge amount of people, unfortunately, like myself included, that are going through grief during this time. And it's a very lonely time and not being able to grieve with family members. It's very difficult. And for a lot of people, they don't have, are able to attend the funeral. And it's a very, very surreal time and a very challenging time for everybody.
Definitely. My goodness. I mean, you personally have gone through quite a lot of emotions, if you like. Yeah, that's tough.
Absolutely. But I feel very resilient. I feel I've used a lot of the skills of therapy on myself. And I feel very fortunate that I have great support here, with my husband, that's helped me to get through it. But my kids are very much grounding me, and I feel I practice mindfulness every day, and that's really helping me also to be very resilient.
And how important is mindfulness in today's world? I'm a big fan of mindfulness. My home is like wallpapered with mindfulness books and have been for years, but especially now. Maybe you might elaborate a little bit more on that with me.
Yeah, mindfulness is so important right now. Mindfulness has been quite a buzzword for quite some
Mm-hmm.
time, but actually, if we really look into mindfulness, it is so scientifically backed. There's a huge amount of research that's gone behind it that is showing the effectiveness across the board of mindfulness. It helps to reduce anxiety. There's a huge amount of research on stress reduction. It helps concentration, memory. Overall, it's just very, very useful and very effective for going through any challenge. So,
And how would you advise one, for example, like say a working mom from home that's juggling, parenting, teaching, her job? How could she incorporate that and build mindfulness into her daily routine?
um, it no, it it's not easy. Mindfulness isn't easy, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
skill, like every skill that needs to be practiced in order to really get the benefits of it. But it's all about awareness and all about self care. So awareness, it's about coming off autopilot. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, we tend to be kind of juggling everything and on autopilot and in our minds quite a lot. And what we want to be doing through mindfulness is getting out of our mind and into our life. So, with that, it's really helpful to integrate mindfulness either through informal or formal practice. So, informal practice could be sitting down with the children and having breakfast mindfully, noticing the temperature, the taste, the flavors of it, and being with the kids and getting them to describe all of it, increasing the awareness there, going out with the kids for a walk instead of, being on our phone or the kids being distracted. Get the kids to describe. You look up and describe and look around and use your senses to ground yourself in the moment. Um, Also, another way of mindfulness is, that informal practice, which is the guided meditation, which is very helpful. But some people find it very hard to find the time to do that. But it's very, very beneficial because it's all about focusing on the breath, and the breath helps us to regulate our emotions. And it helps us to increase our awareness of what thoughts we're experiencing and what emotions we're experiencing. And when we know where our thoughts and emotions are, we can respond to situations with choice rather than react automatically. And that's really helpful. It gives us a choice. So for a lot of parents, we tend to get caught up in the self-criticism and the judgments and everything. And that's where it's really important to be aware of those kind of thoughts and those self-criticisms, and to give ourselves a break and to choose not to engage in the self-criticism, to stand back from it, to notice it, and to just come back to the present moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely difficult though for a lot of people to do that, but it's so rewarding, just to stop,
Yeah,
take a breath, as you say, just go for a walk,
absolutely.
be
Even
present.
though if you're sitting at your table for work at home, it's so important to just stop and pause. Just, press pause in life and just for a moment, just take a breath and then come back to doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It gives us that space to just clear our mind, regulate our emotions, and then choose our response. And that can be really helpful, especially when we're feeling a bit reactive and anxious.
Yeah, that's so true. Or even in the smallest of ways. I mean, separate to the coronavirus, if you're in a kind of a high stressy type job
Yeah,
and your career is very demanding, sometimes you can become mentally blocked because you can't see the wood from the trees. And sometimes it's just the easiest thing to do is just go for a walk, as you say, as you have advised, or
yeah. And I would
sit out for a
see,
cup of coffee, and it will come to you.
yeah, and I would see a lot of people when I'm in my clinic. Even before the coronavirus, I would see a huge amount of people coming for work-related stress and burnout. And often they just say to me that, I just don't have the time to take a moment to pause.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, we do. It's important to prioritize ourselves because, again, if we go back to the evidence, the data, it's all showing that mindfulness is very effective, and that if we can look after ourselves and take a pause and not have to work long, for hours on end, work, go home on time, take your breaks, eat well, exercise. They're all things that contribute to a healthy mind. And research is showing that the more you practice mindfulness and the more you can look after your mind, the more effective you are at work.
Interesting. That is. Yeah. Well, I would be very much promoting mindfulness to everyone and anyone that I chat to. I think it's an incredible tool to have. And even in the supermarket, if you're kind of completely, you've forgotten your shopping list and you're like, oh my God, where do I begin? If you just calm down and, collect your thoughts and take a breath rather, it just all flows. It comes to you.
And I guess that's even showing there, Arlene, that sometimes we can all do that. We can all find ourselves somewhere and, in a shopping centre, go say to ourselves, oh, I've forgotten something, or we're looking down an aisle not knowing what we're getting. And that's us being on autopilot.
Yeah.
We're up in our mind instead of being in our life. And when we are up in our mind, unfortunately, it is just fueling emotions. So that's why it's so important to recognize when you are in your mind and then choose to come back and ground yourself in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'd love to start chatting with you, if I may, about your first childhood memories of your home, Louise.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about those?
Yeah, absolutely. I love my childhood home. It's still in the family. I'm originally from Carlow, from the country in Carlow. And I'm from a family of 6 and I'm a twin. I've got a twin brother and 3 sisters and 1 older brother. So there's a lot of chaos and a lot of running around and lots going on in the family. My father was a solicitor and he had a practice in Carlow, and my mother, she stayed at home with us. She was very much a home and family person. And, hats off to her. She managed to have 6 children. I don't know how she did it. She studied interior design.
Wow.
Yeah, so she has influenced my taste in design as well. And a huge fan of Ventura as well. But when we were about 3 years old, I remember my parents, they decided to buy a house or to build a house in Carlow, and they got an architect called Ken Meehan to design it. And his designs were very futuristic. So the house was very ahead of its time. There was lots of glass in the house. There was a big glass structure in the hallway, which was over 2 stories. So there was a huge amount of light coming in. And my favourite room in the house was the drawing room, which was very bright. It had a piano in it, which we had lots of piano lessons with. There was a spiral staircase that led up to my father's library, which overlooked the drawing room. And the drawing room led into a 2nd-story conservatory that was balancing on a brick structure, and that overlooked the gardens. So that was the house, and I had a lot of memories of, just family life, and it was a really happy house. I remember my father had a strong interest in horses, and he got us into 3-day eventing and polo. We had stables at the house, so we had a lot of great times, lots of great memories of horse riding and heading off to competitions, and we had a sand arena at the back and a cross country course at the back as well. So a huge amount of my memories are just filled with horse riding and the family home. And I love my home so much, my childhood home. I actually decided to get married there 6 years ago. So we had a marquee out the front in the garden. And,
oh, fabulous.
The professional photos were taken in the house. So it's those photos then are now in my own house and keep that memory going.
Wow, it sounds picturesque, Louise. Lovely. And what was your own teenage bedroom like? What posters did you have on the walls?
Oh, I think I had, the likes of Bros and Tech That and all of those kind of boy bands at the time. A lot of good-looking boy bands up on the walls.
Yeah.
And then that kind of changed, and I decided to asked my mom to change and do up the room. And I remember she put a beautiful baby blue carpet and yellow walls and everything. And I used to always kind of turn my bed around and change the room quite a bit. And so it was very different. I was constantly changing it all the time.
Mm-hmm. And what was your mom's style in the home? What kind of style did she have? Was it classic or?
It was very classic. It was, a lot of the rooms were very different. It was a very futuristic house, and there was a lot of, one room was very contemporary, another room had a lot of antiques in it.
Wow.
But she, over the years, has, influenced my my design and my home. And, I would say it would be a lot very contemporary, her style.
Okay. So more contemporary.
Yeah.
And so then that kind of style stayed with you, as you just described in your home today.
Absolutely, yeah. My husband and I bought a house not so long ago, so we're in this exciting stage of doing it up, and I'm delighted that Ventura Design has now gone online, so I can.
Good, that's good to hear.
Yeah, so I love contemporary design as well. So I like the neutral shades and with a pop of color, and I love artwork. I know our walls are filled with photos of the family and travel memories of the years. I have lots of artwork, including Philip Tracy painting and Owen O'Connor for that really good pop of colour. And my husband recently bought me for my 40th a Tony O'Connor equine original piece, which which he's working on at the moment, and I'm collecting. Hopefully I'll be able to collect it with this lockdown, but in July.
Oh, wow.
So we've got lots of plants in the house as well. And my husband is into golf, so he's put a putting green in the garden.
Okay.
So that is also
lucky for him.
I know, that is also keeping us sane. We go out occasionally and hit a few balls. But yeah, the kitchen is my favourite. I like to keep it quite minimalistic, but it's my favourite room in the house. And I guess that goes back to my childhood as well. It was my favourite room in the house then. But we've got an island in the middle of the kitchen, which is kind of the centre of the family life. And it serves a great hide and seek for Hugo, and a great place for the family to catch up. And it's a great place for me in the morning to be able to stop and pause before the day kind of unravels. Oh
yeah, sounds lovely. And tell me a little bit about when you first moved to London.
Yeah, so I first moved to the UK I don't know when it was, 2003, and I moved to Edinburgh originally, and I studied masters there, and excuse me, then I moved to Oxford, and I wanted to really get on to a doctorate program, so I knew that the only way of doing that was to ensure I got a master's, to ensure that I got all the practical kind of research and clinical experience before I got onto the course. So that kind of brought me to Oxford, where I did my research assistant post in Oxford University. And then it brought me to London, and I had a great time in London. I studied my doctorate. I finished that, and I began working in the Priory Hospital, and it was a great time, great experience. I got promoted in the Priory Hospital to becoming Lead Psychologist for female personality disorder service. And I had to train up staff and implement the program, and that went really well. So they commissioned me to be a consultant and open up all of the Priory Hospital inpatient services for women suffering from borderline personality disorder. But I really wanted to own my own practice, so I began working. I set up a practice in Harley Street. And I was there for I worked in Harley Street for probably 5 years. It was,
Wow.
it was a fantastic experience. It really has been the center of my experience. And I found it very hard to leave London and to leave kind of Harley Street because of the experience that it was giving me. But I was really missing home, and I wanted to start a family as well. So that brought me back home to Ireland.
Right. And how do you think we are on par with in terms of how we're dealing with mental health in Ireland in comparison to the UK? Do you think we're doing a good job here?
Yeah, I think we are. I think that unfortunately, though, there's far too much waiting lists. I think that Ireland, the training is very good. Sometimes it can be, we just need to kind of push forward a little bit more in Ireland, push more research, push more, and get things going a little bit more. However, I think we've got fantastic psychologists. I just think that we don't have enough of them. And the services really need it. And I think now is the time where more than ever, actually, that people really need the support of psychologists.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think virtual consultations are something that works well for you, or with?
Yeah, that's actually something, just going back to the last question, that I find very different in that when I was in London, a huge amount of people wanted online. They wanted virtual therapy. They traveled a lot. They found it very efficient. And in Ireland, when I came back, I found that there was no uptake for it. People didn't really want it. They really wanted kind of in-person therapy sessions. So I guess now, we're faced with that. It is the only way of really getting therapy at the moment. And people were originally a little bit slower to come and go online. But now people are reaching out, and I think people are getting used to it and seeing the benefits of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's just the only alternative at the moment. And it sounds like it would be an ideal offering to have, for your clientele,
Absolutely.
especially if they are, as you described, busy and traveling and.
Yeah, and I think, with the coronavirus, I think that unfortunately people are suffering in silence, and there is that outlet there, and it can be difficult because children are in the house, and it can be harder to have that privacy, but it is the way forward. It is, thankfully, we're able to do it. There's a lot of my colleagues who are doctors, frontline staff, and dentists that don't really have that option as much. And fortunately, going forward, we can offer online therapy, and it is very easy to access it.
Yeah, for sure. And what was your experience like working in the Priory?
It was great. I worked with great teams, great psychologists there. I worked a lot with adults. There's a lot of, the Priory has a great name to it, and a lot of famous people would have gone in and out of the Priory. Obviously, with confidentiality, I can't discuss any of that.
I understand, of course.
Yeah, but it's given me, it's been able to help me to broaden my skills across the whole board. So, not just with anxiety, depression, it's across the whole board of the spectrum of problems. So it's been a fantastic experience, and, a very proud experience to be able to say that I became lead, and that I had a great team behind me.
Yeah. It's like, it's kind of a world-renowned hospital, really, the Priory. You hear about it all the time.
Yeah, it's been great, and I'm fortunate to have had that experience behind me, and I'm delighted where I am now, though, and I'm expanding the business, and but it's great to have all that experience.
For sure, wonderful experiences and opportunities. And do you feel that social media has massively impacted our society on a whole?
I do. I think people are, again, everyone's going kind of online, and I've been a bit slower to get into it, and I'm going to make myself get into it more. But I definitely think there's pros and cons to it. I think pros, it's giving people a platform. It's a great way of connecting with people and having a voice and having support, building a network, a village of people and having that support. It's great for businesses. It's great for getting, for psychologists to be able to, if people aren't able to come in for therapy, to be able to access, good blogs, good articles, for self-care. And on the con side, people can get very disconnected and get really into it and kind of get very distracted and get back up in their mind and not really in their life. But overall, I think it's definitely a great platform for people, and if people can use it effectively.
That's interesting how you described it, though, disconnected and distracted by, the usage of social media. I would never have put those words with social media, but it's probably true,
Yeah, I think if we use it appropriately, I think it can be really helpful. But unfortunately, for a lot of us, and myself included, sometimes, I think that we can just first thing in the morning, just the first thing we do is look at our phones and our iPads and get on social media. And I think it's really important to use it effectively and to have time to use it, and but also not let it take over life as well.
Yeah, and it does take over a lot of people's lives, and it's, it really is something that it has its pluses and minuses for sure.
Definitely.
And so your own interior style at home, Louise, you described your family home as futuristic.
Yeah.
And that you felt that you've taken away that contemporary style from your mum's, from your own family home. So describe your own home to me now.
So, my own home would be, it's contemporary. It is, it's lots of neutral colors. We're in the middle of doing it up at the moment. We're based in Dublin. And so I'm kind of missing the kind of country style feel, but it's great to be close to the city and close to my work. But it's contemporary. It's got neutral shades. There's pops of color. There's lots of photos and of travels. I used to travel quite a bit, so we've got lots of pictures around the walls. We've got lots of artwork, as I was saying earlier, Philip Tracy and Tony Connor. Lots of plants.
And colors. Describe your home even to me by way of color. Like, what colors have you gone for in your home?
So we are choosing colors at the moment. I really like greys and duck egg and elephant breath. And I love white as well. Keeping it pure and minimalistic. I love and fresh as well, and white walls with that. Then the artwork then over it, to give that
beautiful. Yeah. Color. That's your pop of color, exactly.
Yeah.
Lovely.
So I've got lots of mirrors also around, just to again bring in lots of light, and to extend the room. So we have it in the hallway, quite a nice big mirror that I actually got from my childhood home. And in our living room as well, we've got actually a Ventura mirror that my mom bought me. Yeah, so again, it's just giving lots of light in the room, and it's making the room also, it's enhancing it as well.
Yeah, mirrors are fantastic for that. They do work hard for you.
Yeah.
And do you like having people around for dinner, or do you like hosting? And
I do. It's been a while since we've done it now.
I can imagine, yeah.
But I do, and it's one of the things I'm looking forward to doing when this lockdown is over, and also when our youngest is in more routine. But yeah, I love entertaining. I love having friends over. I love cooking a nice dinner, and getting all the good cutlery out.
Yeah, the whole ritual is nice, really.
Yeah, and it's lovely. It's time to connect, and it's just nice sitting down around a table and putting phones away and just having a nice catch up with people.
For sure. And are you a super organized person at home?
I am. Yeah.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah, I am. I love being organized. I love to. I'm one of those people that mind maps everything.
Okay.
So I have things in order. I'm really not OCD. Like there's some rooms that I definitely need to get round to, and I've procrastinated. But
well, you're busy, I'd imagine.
yeah,
question of time probably for you.
Yeah, but I think it's good to be organized. It makes life easier. I think it's good for our own mind to have things that are more in order and cleaner, and but it gives me a good sense of direction as well, and it gives me peace of mind just to know that I know where everything is, and when I mind map that it's bringing me in a direction, like I've got my goals and I know where I'm going, and that's a good motivator.
That's a great, yeah, definitely a great motivator. And where's your favorite place in your home? Where do you like to kind of sit and read a book or read a magazine?
I love sitting around our island in the kitchen. It's really nice. It's really bright, especially in the morning. I tend to go down before the kids get up, and I just have that moment where I just kind of have my tea or coffee, and I sit down. I have that moment just to let go. And it's also filled with, we've got lots of lovely photos in the kitchen and everything. So it's just a nice place for me to go and relax.
And what would your morning ritual be? How would you generally start the day?
So I used to have an alarm clock, but that's gone out the window now because
yes.
children. But I tend to get up, and the first thing I would do would be to make a bed. So I just like to have the bedroom clean. So I make the bed, I get up, I have my shower, and when I go downstairs, I then tend to start getting breakfast ready for the kids, and then I'll have a quick check of emails. But it's not it. Sometimes that can come. I can look at it earlier, but I really try. I try my best not to look at it first thing in the morning. And then when the kids get up, I try to do a daily mindfulness practice with Hugo. So
that sounds lovely. So how does that work?
So I always kind of set an intention for the day. It's part of mindfulness practice. An intention of, I say to myself anyway, of trying to be as present as I can. I set an intention of trying to be, try not to be reactive, try to let things go. But with Hugo, I'm encouraging him. He's turning 3 next month, and I haven't so far given him any screen time, and I don't know how long that's going to last for, but I'm trying my best to bring in mindfulness to him and to kind of to give him that skill at a very young age. So we in the mornings we would sit down, and together we would have our breakfast, and I'd get him to describe everything that he would see and taste using his senses, and get him to, when he's eating food, describe what it feels like. What flavors does he notice? And what is the food? And he's really good at it. When we go for walks, I get him to describe using his senses what he sees, what he hears, name 5 things, and we turn it into a game. And then, at the end of the day with mindfulness, when we're sitting around the dinner table, I get my husband involved as well, and we all say, what was the best part of the day, and just having that gratitude for the day. Because I think a lot of the time we can be a little bit stressed and we can just focus on the negatives, and it's really important to also acknowledge the positives and to I want Hugo to be able to have gratitude as well, and so that would be a big part of our mindfulness routine.
That sounds so lovely.
He's good.
I love that.
I haven't introduced him to any kind of formal mindful practice. I think he's a bit young at the moment, but I do tend to, when he gets a little bit frustrated, I would tend to get him to just breathe, and I model it to him, and I think that's very effective, and I think it's very effective for all children and for adults as well. And just being able to stop and breathe to regulate emotions, so that with children anyway, that they don't get so overwhelmed with what they're feeling, or also that they don't feel shamed that they're feeling emotion. That it's great that they are able to express emotion, but it's also important that they regulate it as well.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny, I have always heard of the term anxiety throughout my life. You'd hear it on the radio or in conversations, but nowadays it just seems like it's dropped into almost every conversation you have with somebody, or it's just constantly across social media, or it's always on television. It's just and like an epidemic, and I mean that genuinely. It just seems like more people are anxious than ever before. Is this?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are more anxious, and that's something that we need to look into. What is it about our society that is making people a lot more anxious? Is it our work? Is it home life? Like what's happening currently? But also, there's that people are having a voice now. People are actually breaking that silence, which is a wonderful thing as well, in that they're able to say that they're anxious, and they're able to, speak to people and get that support. Whereas, a long time ago, people, would have been quite stigmatized for being able to say it. So, it's twofold. I definitely do think that we do need to be looking a lot at just the stressors out there and why it does seem to be increasing, but twofold, that it is great that people are saying it.
Yeah, that's true. Or that a lot of people just didn't even know how to describe what they were feeling, and now they've learned the word, and
it's great.
And what have you learned about yourself, Louise, during the pandemic?
I've learned that I feel that I'm quite resilient. I think I've got my mother to thank, because I think she's a very optimistic person, and even with my father's death recently, she's a very optimistic person, and that's a great trait to have.
Yes.
I feel that there's been a lot of kind of life circumstances that have unfolded, since the start of the year for me, and I feel that it's made me really look at my values in life, and really look at trying to work on them every single day in order for me to be as resilient as I can. And I feel that's brought me a lot of strength, and it's something that I speak to a lot with my own clients. That I see the importance of us looking at our values, because they're a compass in life. They ground us in life, whereas goals can be a little bit different. We work on goals every day, and we achieve them, but values are, at the heart of us. They're about what is truly important to us in our life, and that really helps us to ground ourselves. And when we work on our values, we have to work on them every day for the rest of our life. And I definitely think that those sorts of values, getting in touch with our values, definitely makes us a lot more resilient. So I think that this pandemic, it's made me feel resilient, and it's made me feel very fortunate, actually, as well, that we have our health, my family, we have our health, that I still have a job, I have my kids. There's a lot of positives within the sadness of what's happening around the world.
Yeah, that's for sure. It definitely 2020 has been, very big year for you in many ways.
Yeah, it's been big, but it's also been, been good as well. And I've got my lovely little boy
Of
Alexander,
course.
and that we're in our love bubble at the moment. And
Oh, that's nice.
it's family life as well at the moment. It's all about family life, in lockdown, and that's really good and really enjoyable also.
Would you describe yourself as a spiritual person, Louise?
I have religious beliefs, and I also think that, I was brought up Catholic, but I also feel through my mindfulness practice that it does help me to connect a lot more with kind of the world and people around me, and with myself as well. So I definitely feel a lot more connected in that way. So I would describe myself as spiritual.
Yeah. And what would be one, like if there was one piece in your home that would hold the dearest memories to you, what would that be?
That's a good question. In my childhood home, I would say it would be our kitchen. And probably also in my current life, my current home, definitely it's the kitchen. It's where it all happens. It's where the chaos happens. It's where the great moments happen, and it definitely it's all about family for me. So that would be it, I think.
And how would you normally spend Christmas? What would be your memories of that?
Christmas is my favorite time of year.
Okay.
And it's definitely a family one. Growing up, we loved Christmas at home, and my mother would go all out for Christmas, and my father would love New Year's and want us all there for New Year's as well. So there was 6 of us, as I was saying earlier, and we'd sit around and play like lots of games of Guess Who and Snap, and just lots of games and lots of fun, and great Christmas dinner. And that's continued into adult life now, where we actually still have the same traditions, and the whole family still come together. And my poor husband, who is French and is living in Ireland here and London here, he unfortunately hates the fact that I love Christmas in Ireland so much, because it means that I don't unfortunately go over to France for Christmas. I love it here so much. So it's a bit of a bugbear, but I will compromise and go over one of the times. But
I'm sure it's beautiful there as well.
Oh, it's beautiful, and he has promised we'll go skiing and everything to make it even better for me. But I just love my family home life and the Christmas tradition that we have. And at some point I'll have to break it, but it's great fun.
What's the first thing you think you'll do when the lockdown is lifted?
First thing I'm going to do is go over to my mother and give her a hug.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, I think she could do with it at the moment.
Of course.
With a lot of people, but that's the first thing I do. And then I would get round to planning my 40th. I turned 40 in April, and we had a lovely, very quiet 40th here in the house. But I think when it's all safe to do so, I miss my friends, so I'm definitely going to have a great night out.
Oh yeah, you must treat yourself. You sound like you've earned one.
Thank you.
And what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say be kind. I had a tendency to be a little bit hard on myself, to push myself. I think a lot of people do that. And I think that over the years, I've really learned that self-compassion is very important in life. And actually it's a better motivator in life. I tended to be a little bit of a perfectionist, and that got me frustrated. And because there's no such thing as perfection, and it just brings quite kind of strong, rigid beliefs and wanting things to be done right. And I think I'd be a lot kinder and compassionate and realistic, and that you can achieve great things by just being kind to yourself.
It's so true. Just give yourself a break every now and again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, I'm doing my mind map again, and I'm building my clinic. I've got fantastic psychologists working for me. I've got a great team of clinical psychologists. I wanted to continue to expand on that. I'd like to see my business getting bigger and to be able to help a lot more people. I think that it would be great to get people having a lot more support than what's currently offered. So I'd love my 5-year map would be career-wise to expand, and also to travel a little bit more as well if I can fit it in.
Mind mapping sounds really interesting. It's something that I'd love to do one of these days. Just sit down and do a bit of mind mapping. How would you advise somebody to begin that process?
I think it's really important to get into a good frame of mind to do it, because you need to be very clear in your goals. So I'd say sit down and take a moment to breathe and let go of any stresses, and then sit down and think about your goals. What do you want to achieve? How would you like something to unfold in order to optimize that? So sitting down, get your pen and paper and just formulate, really think about, get a picture in your mind of what way you'd like it to be, and then map that out, and start with small steps and very achievable steps. So link in that SMART goal, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic in a time frame, and it works so effectively.
Really? It sounds like it's similar to that of a vision board. You've probably heard of those before.
Yeah, and I do it exactly like that vision. I put it out in pen and paper. I draw a big circle, and then I draw around it with the arrows, the different goals, my different values, and what I want to achieve, and dotted lines of the next stages and things. So I think it's a really effective way of just getting very clear in your mind, and it takes a lot of the hard work out of it when you can do that.
Mm-hmm. And it's probably a lot more achievable when you see it probably written in front of you. You can see your goals very clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important to always formulate your goals and put it down on paper, just so that it gives you that direction. It gets you out of your mind as well, and gets you quite focused.
Wow, sounds great. I'm going to have to start that. I'm going to put that on my list of things to do for sure. And Louise, I'm just going to ask you another quick round fire of questions. It's just a little bit of fun that we do at the end of every podcast.
Great.
Are you ready?
Yep, far away.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Bath or shower?
Bath.
Text or talk?
Talk.
Morning or night person?
Morning.
Taxi or walk?
I'll definitely walk.
Home or abroad?
Home.
Yoga or Pilates?
Pilates.
Interiors or fashion?
Interiors.
Dublin or London?
Dublin.
Eat in or take out?
Take out.
News or Netflix?
Netflix.
And the last one is Boris Johnson or Donald Trump?
Oh, God. I don't know. That's a tough one. I'd probably have to say Boris Johnson, but the tough one. That's
probably a whole different podcast. Yeah. Your opinion on both of those two people. Well, Louise, thank you so much for joining me. And I'd like to wish you and your husband and your children and your mom all the best. Great. Thank you so much. And I look forward to meeting you post-lockdown, hopefully when it's all safe. Absolutely. That sounds like a plan. Thank you very much for joining me. Take care. Lovely speaking with you.